Hey guys, it's Alexandra from EyeLoveKnots.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make my super chunky through the window Afghan. This Afghan uses an inset mosaic stitch pattern to create this what looks like a window pane pattern to me. This is going to be single crochets, chains underneath the double crochet, and then you push those to the back so you can work your double crochet stitches over it. So it looks a lot more complicated than it is, but it creates this beautiful stitch pattern that is just one of my favorites. This one is super chunky. It is worked with Bernat Blanket Yarn, which is a number 6 weight yarn. I'm going to link the free crochet pattern in the description box below. I do also have a worsted weight version that I will link in the description box as well. There are 11 sizes to choose from. I will include instructions for all of those, and you'll find them as well in the written pattern. For my Afghan, I have used the color white, and then faded blues, which is a variegated yarn. My favorite way to use this stitch pattern is to have the main color a coordinating color for a variegated yarn. The variegated yarn as your coordinating color really brings the colors together. It's just my favorite way to showcase variegated yarn. But it also looks great if you do solid colors for both, or even if you just do one color. It still gives you that great texture that you see there. To go with this yarn, I'm going to be using an M13 9mm crochet hook. For weaving in ends, instead of using a needle, I like to use my G6 4.25mm hook. It's a smaller crochet hook with a large mouth here that makes it really easy to pull my ends through. So when it comes time to weave in my ends, you're going to see me using this crochet hook to do it. It is the way that I do it every single time when I use Bernat Blanket Yarn. Gauge is not essential for this project unless the finished size matters to you. If it does, then you're going to want to grab a soft tape measure so that you can take gauge. Measuring gauge on this project, we're going to do it over 2 of the double crochets and 2 of the single crochets. So I'm holding my tape measure up here to the left side of that first double crochet of the set of 2, and I'm going to measure all the way over to the right side of that second single crochet, and that's going to give me 1 7/8 inches wide. That's 2 double crochets and 2 single crochets. Those 4 stitches together are going to be 1 7/8 inches wide. Height wise, you're going to take your tape measure and you're going to lay it where a row of single crochet starts, and then you're going to measure all the way up to where the row ends. 10 rows is going to be 5 inches tall. So rather than working the whole entire project up, you're going to want to start with a small sample, maybe of 10 stitches or 12 stitches wide, and then you don't have to go the full 10 rows. You could go 5 rows and see if you measure 2.5 inches tall. If you're measuring smaller than my given measurements, you're going to want to go to a larger crochet hook and rework your sample. If you're measuring larger than my given measurements, you're going to want to go to a smaller crochet hook and rework your sample. Taking gauge only matters if the finished size matters to you. If you want it to come out to the same sizes that I am providing, then you're going to want to take your gauge. If you don't care if it comes out a little bit smaller or a little bit larger, then just go ahead and start your blanket. I am going to be showing you the stitch pattern. That's going to be shown in a stitch pattern that I am using a worsted weight yarn on. So the yarn is going to be different, the colors are going to be different, but the stitch pattern is going to be exactly the same. If you want to alter the width of the Afghan, you're going to want to add or subtract by 4s. The chain multiple for this is going to be a multiple of 4 plus 3. So you can just take the chains that I have provided and subtract or add 4 to vary the size. For height, the repeat is done in 4s. So either add or subtract 4 rows. After we get the stitch pattern worked up, I'm going to provide a chart that shows how many rows you'll need to work depending on the size that you've chosen. After you work all the rows up, then I will be back so that we can work the border together. I will show you how to weave in your ends, and then we'll be all set. So let's go ahead and get started. My sample is going to begin with a chain 31. I'm going to provide a chart to you that shows how many chains you're going to work depending on the size that you're making. I'm going to start with a slip knot. So I've pulled the tail end over my fingers here, wrap it around my index finger 2 times, hold the tension with my thumb and my middle finger, grab the loop on the left, pull it up over the other one but not off my finger, grab the loop on the left now, pull it up over the other one and off my finger, and the tension is loose right here with the tail end, but it should also be tucked in there with my thumb and my middle finger. Then I will take my crochet hook, put it on the loop that's on my finger, pull it off, hold the working yarn in my right hand, and the tail end in my left, I'm going to pull that to normal tension. I'm going to start with a chain 31. To chain, we yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. That is 3 chains. I'm going to go ahead and continue working on my chains. I've finished my chains. Now I'm going to work a single crochet into the second chain from the hook and each chain all the way across. So we don't count the loop that's on our hook. Then I have 1 chain, 2 chains, insert my hook right into the center of that chain, yarn over, pull through. There are 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert my hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert my hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. And I'm going to go ahead and continue single crocheting down the chain. Alright, there's the last chain. I'm going to go ahead and just hold the fabric and pull on that tail end to close up that hole. And I have now 30 single crochets worked. For row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to simply single crochet into the very first stitch by inserting it into the stitch, picking up both loops from that top V shape and completing a single crochet, and then we'll continue single crocheting into each stitch all the way across. I've come to my last stitch, and here's where I'm going to switch colors. So I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to put this down for a moment. I'll grab my next color, which is going to be this darker blue, make a loop, have a tail end long enough I can weave in, and I'll grab my work here, put that loop on my hook, and pull it through both loops. That counts as the last yarn over and pull through of the stitch. And now we'll start working this next row with our blue color. So I'm just going to tighten down the gray a little bit, then I'll drop that and the tail end, pick up the new blue, chain 1, and turn. Our repeat is 4 rows. This row that we're about to start working here is the very first row from the repeat. So I am going to be changing colors to do a sort of striping here, but the repeat is going to be worked exactly the same no matter which colors I have. So this is the first row. We start with a single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. Then we chain 2, skip each of the next 2 stitches, single crochet into the next 2 stitches, chain 2, skip each of the next 2 stitches, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and you'll continue that across, chain 2, skip each of the next 2 stitches, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And there we are. Next row is going to be chain 1, turn. Same exact thing, single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches, chain 2, skip the chain space, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, chain 2, skip the next chain space, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and continue this all the way across. Here I've made it to my last stitch, and I'm going to switch colors again here. So I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to hold the tension of those 2 loops with my index finger here, and I'm holding the work with my thumb and my middle finger, and I'm dropping the blue. I'm going to reach down, pick up that gray. First thing, I can see it's come loose here, so I'm going to tighten it up so that looks like normal tension there. Then I have the blue yarn in my thumb and my middle finger because I want to hold tension on this stitch as well. And I'm going to naturally yarn over with the gray and pull it through these 2 loops. And I say naturally because you just want an even pull there, like as normal, natural as possible. Yarn over and pull it through. You don't want it to bunch up, you don't want it to be too loose, you just want it to lay naturally right there on the side of your work. Now you have the gray yarn ready to go, chain 1 and turn. And we'll leave this float here, we'll crochet over it later and you won't even notice. The next row of our repeat is going to start with single crochet into each of those first 2 single crochets. Then we're going to double crochet into each of those skipped stitches from 2 rows below. Start by yarning over. Then we want to push the chains to the back and move the stitches to the front. So we don't want to work into these stitches here or around them, the chains. We want to work in front of them. So we've yarned over, we're going to insert our hook into that very first skip stitch, yarn over, pull through. There are 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Then we'll double crochet into that next stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And as we did that, we created 2 layers. So we have the chains on the back that have not been worked into at all, they've just been pushed to the back. And then we have the 2 double crochets we just worked into those skip stitches, which are going to lay right on top of those chains. We're going to single crochet into each of the next 2 single crochets. And once you do that, those double crochet stitches are attached. They're secured. They're not going to flip on you or anything. It's going to be even. We're going to do that again. We're going to push those chains to the back, pull those skip stitches to the front, yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. The chains in the back have not been worked into, they're just pushed to the back. Double crochets are pushed to the front. And now we're going to single crochet into each of the next 2 single crochets. And this will allow those double crochets to just lay on top of the chains. Continue working in this repeat all the way down by double crocheting into each of those skipped stitches from 2 rows down. And then single crochet into each of those next 2 single crochets. And there we are, the 3rd row of the repeat. Next row is going to be a chain 1, turn, single crochet into the first stitch, and each stitch all the way across. And here we've come to the very last stitch of the row. We want to switch colors because we work 2 rows per color. Insert our hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on our hook. We're going to pause here. I'm going to lay this down because I'm going to be switching to a different color that I don't already have here. I'm going to form a loop with a tail end long enough to weave in. Put that loop on my hook and pull it through. Then I'll tighten down that gray, drop the tail end, pick up the working yarn, chain 1 and turn. And now we begin the repeat all over again. So I'll recap that for you. We're going to start by working a single crochet into each of those first 2 stitches, then chain 2, skip each of the next 2 stitches, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And these are really easy to line up. You just want to make sure that the stitches you're working here line up with the colored stitches from 2 rows below. Those boxes will line up. If it's uneven, then perhaps you've added or missed a stitch. Go ahead and continue and pattern across. That's the first row of our repeat. Chain 1, and turn. Second row, single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches, chain 2, skip the next chain space, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, chain 2, skip the next chain space, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Continue across. And here's my last stitch of the row, so I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to insert my hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to hold the tension of the loops with my index finger for my right hand, hold the fabric there with my thumb and middle finger. Then I'm going to drop the blue. I'm going to switch to gray here, so I'm going to pick up the gray. I'm going to tighten it up in case it's loosened in that last stitch. And then I'm going to hold the current tail end with my thumb and middle finger from my left hand, just to hold the tension there. Then, as natural as possible, I'm going to yarn over with the new color and pull it through. I want it to lay evenly up the side. I don't want it to be too loose or too tight. Then I'm going to chain 1 with my new color and turn. And that float will just sit there, and as I mentioned, we'll put a border on and the floats won't even be an issue. The third row of the repeat is single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches, double crochet into each of those skip stitches from 3 rows down, making sure you push the chains to the back and you pull the stitches to the front. Single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, then double crochet into each of those skip stitches from 2 rows down. So I yarn over, insert my hook right into the first skip stitch, picking up the stitch, and then I pull my hook forward so it doesn't work into or around those chains. Yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, pull my hook forward, and then complete my double crochet. Single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, double crochet into each of those next skip stitches from 2 rows down, single crochet into each of those next 2 stitches. Continue working across. That's the third row of our repeat, and then just 1 more row left. Chain 1, turn, single crochet into the first stitch and each stitch all the way across. Here I've reached the last stitch of the row, insert my hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, and now I want to switch colors. I'm going to yarn over here with the new color and pull it through the loops on my hook. And I also want it to not be too tight or it will bunch my fabric up, and I don't want it to be too loose. So you can use your fingers to manipulate the fabric if you need more slack there. And then chain 1 and turn. And then I'll start my repeat all over again with single crochet into each of those first 2 stitches. To count these rows, you do it in 2s. The colors group themselves together. So there's 2 gray ones in the beginning 2 dark blue, 2 gray, 2 light blue, 2 gray. So you'll count it just like that, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm going to go ahead and continue working off camera, but I'll put up a chart here showing how many rows you'll need depending on the size that you're working. For my Afghan, I went ahead and worked 5 rows of the border. That's 2 in the white, 1 in the faded blues, and 2 in the white. You could do it all in one solid color, or you could alternate your striping more. Maybe do rows 2 and 4 in the faded blues and white in the others. For the first 3 sizes, there are only 3 rounds of the border. All the rest of them have 5. I will put up a chart with that information. But before I do, I'm going to show you 2 ways of how you can tie on a new strand of yarn. And I went that direction because I wanted to tie on in the chain space to work my corner with the complete corner. But if you prefer to change your colors in the last yarn over of the round where you're slip stitching, then go ahead and do that. I've started all my rounds in the corners and the chain spaces, but wherever you slip stitch join to, you can just chain 1, single crochet into that stitch and work all the way around in pattern. First I'm going to start with the chain 1, and then I'm going to turn. I'm going to try something a little bit different on my corner than what I normally do. I normally just start with a single crochet and then work around, and when I come back I end on my chains and I join. But I'm going to try to do it similar to a granny square, how you do your corner first. So I'm going to start by working a single crochet into that very first stitch. I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to work a single crochet back into that same exact stitch. When we work the corners, we need to increase on them so that they get larger but continue to lay flat. So we need to give them more stitches there than all the rest. The very top and the bottom are easiest to work into because there's already stitches there that have the V shape. They're really easy to see and to work into. We're just going to single crochet into each stitch there along the top, all the way across until we get to the very last stitch of the row. And this is my actual blanket, so it's lots of stitches. I am not going to work all of them on camera, so I will see you when I get to the end of the row. I have made it to the end of the row here. Not counting the very first stitch where we worked our corner or this last stitch of the row, the total number of stitches that you're going to have in the middle is going to be the total number of stitches across minus 2. So depending on the size that you're working, that is how you're going to figure out how many stitches you're going to have here. Now that we've reached this last corner, we need to increase again the same way as we did before. So we're going to work a single crochet in that stitch, chain 2, and then another single crochet back into that same exact stitch. And that's our second corner. Now I'm going to rotate my fabric so I can work down the side. This corner here that I made, it works for me. It's not puckering out, it's even, it's giving me a sort of square shape, which is what I want. I wanted a little bit more than a chain 1 in there so that I can have more space to work the next round's corner in there. But if you find that your corner is flaring out, it means it has too many stitches. So then I would suggest taking this out and going to a chain 1. If your corner is more rounded and you prefer something a little bit more square, you can do a chain 3. You might just have to play around with it and see what works. It can vary depending on your tension. Working up and down the sides is a little bit more tricky than the top and bottom. Working down and up the sides for single crochet rows like we've worked, the rule is 1 single crochet per row. So that makes it a little bit easier here. You're going to see 2 different types of stitches here. This next one that we're about to work when you insert directly into the center of that stitch, you get 2 loops on the side, similar to the V shape that you see normally. And then after that, you see a stitch that just looks like a hole. There are 2 loops in that, but it's much tighter so you can't see it. So you'll just work into the hole there. The very next one, you have the V shape, so you insert into the center of the stitch and you pick up 2 loops on your hook. And then the next one just looks like a hole and you insert right into the center. As you work on the sides, you want to work as close to the side edge as possible. Do not work in the middle of stitches because you're going to create a very large hole there. So work as closely to the side edge as you can and your side will be even and there won't be any big gaps in there. You're going to alternate all the way down the side. If you get lost and you're not sure if you have the stitches that you're supposed to have, working in the 2 colors really helps a lot because then you know that you're going to have 2 stitches on each color. So for this yellow, I have 1 stitch here that's the hole, 1 stitch here that is the V shape. Then I'm in the buff color and I have 1 stitch in the hole, 1 stitch in the V shape. Back in the yellow, 1 stitch in the hole, 1 stitch in the V shape. So that makes it a lot easier here just to make sure that you're working the correct amount of stitches on the side. I'm going to go ahead and continue working all the way down and I'm going to do it off camera because I have a very large blanket here. But the rule here for counting your stitches on the sides, you're going to take the total number of rows that you worked, then you're going to subtract 1, and that's going to be how many you're going to have here in the center, not including the very first stitch and the very last stitch where you're going to have corners worked. Alright, I've made it down the side of my blanket. Now I have just 1 stitch left here and that's where I'm going to work my next corner. So I will single crochet into that stitch, chain 2, and single crochet back into the same exact stitch. That's my 3rd corner. And now we're going to work across the opposite side of the foundation chain. This is where we began our blanket, and you work it very similar to how you did on the top. It's very similar to how you worked when you worked into the chain. You're just going to work into the center of it there, picking up those loops on your hook, and single crochet. Work into the center of the next stitch, and we'll just continue single crocheting into each stitch all the way across until we get to the very last stitch where we will work another corner. You'll have the same number of stitches across here that you did when you worked the top. I've worked all the way across the bottom. I have 1 stitch left where I will single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. Now we're going to work up the side the same exact way that we did before. Here you're going to see the stitches look sort of backwards because we're looking at the other side of it. You're also going to see the floats on the side from where we carried up our yarn. You're going to crochet over those floats to hide them. So I'm going to work 1 stitch into this next stitch here and 1 into the hole, and that's going to be right under where this float is going to begin. So the float is just on top of my hook with the rest of the side edge there, and I'll crochet over it. The next stitch here you're going to insert into the center of it, picking up just the 2 loops, which is hard to see because it's underneath the float. And then you have the float on your hook, and then you complete your single crochet. The next one looks like a hole, and you have the float over your hook, and complete your single crochet. Then work into the side edge there, picking up 2 loops, and the float, and single crochet. Next one is a hole, you have the float on your hook, and single crochet. Next one I'm inserting it into the center, floats there, single crochet. Next one is a hole with a float over top, and I'm single crocheting. I'll continue the same way all the way up the side here, and again if you get lost, just make sure you're working 2 stitches per color block, and you'll have the same number of stitches on this side that you had on the other side. Once you get to a point where you've changed colors and you've fastened off your yarn, I've already woven it in here, but I have one up here where the orange is. You're just going to do it the same exact way. Here you'll work one stitch here, then the next stitch here with the float over your hook. Next stitch is going to be into that center stitch, and you'll just have that over your hook. If you want to weave in your ends beforehand, then you won't have this visible at all. Here in the center, I've already woven it in. I tried to do some of them as I went, so that's why this one is already in the bulkiness of this color block here. But it's up to you. Either way, if you have your ends there, just push it to the side and continue crocheting as normal. Alrighty, I've just worked my last stitch here up the side, and now I'm back to the beginning where I started. I'm going to slip stitch join to the very first single crochet of the round. So I'm going to insert into the stitch as normal, then yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook. That is a slip stitch join, and I'm going to do that every round of the border. Round 1 is now complete. For my first round, I used the same buff color that I finished with. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch colors. Since I'm going to be fastening off and weaving in anyway, I'm going to go ahead and join my new color in the chain space of the corner, just like I would if I was doing a granny square. So I'm going to go ahead and fasten off this buff. Pull up on this loop to break it, and then I'm going to insert from the wrong side to the right side into that same stitch I joined to, yarn over and pull that tail end to the back. If you're going to continue in the same color for your border, rather than fastening off here, you would just slip stitch join, chain 1, single crochet into that first single crochet, and then work your corner and continue on. And each row is going to be worked exactly the same as this next row. I want to change up my colors, so that's why I went ahead and fastened off, and I'm going to join a new color. So I'm just going to do green for now. I haven't decided if that's what it's going to be, but I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook into that chain space of the corner, and it doesn't matter what corner you start with. Then I'm going to put the yarn over it, my new color, and pull it through. I like to pull it all the way through, and then I make like the first part of a knot. Then I drop the tail end. I have the green yarn in my hand as I normally hold it. Insert my hook back into that chain space, yarn over and pull through. I have that loop there now, chain 1, and now I'm ready to officially begin. Single crochet into that chain space, chain 2, single crochet back into the same exact chain space. Then I would continue on, single crochet into each stitch all the way across the top here, or across whatever side that you have. Once I get to the other end here, I would have a single crochet here into that last single crochet, which is the first one of the corner. Then in the chain space, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and then single crochet into the next single crochet and work all the way down. You can change it up if you want, do half double crochets or double crochets, or maybe you want a single crochet into the back loop only or into the front loop only. All of it is going to give you a different look and different texture. You'll want to have the finished measurement in mind so you can measure as you work and stop when you get close to the size that you're looking for. Let's go back here to where I joined my color. Another way that you could do this is the way that I like to do it. It's just really simple. But you could also start with a single crochet. You would make a slip knot here as normal. Insert my hook into that loop. Tighten the loop up. And then go to that chain space there. Insert my hook directly into the chain space, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. I've completed the very first single crochet. Then I would chain 2 single crochet into that same chain space. And then when you come around, you already have a single crochet there that you can join to. There are so many different ways that you can tie it on. These are just the 2 that I use the most often. Once you're finished with your border, we'll weave in our ends, and then your Afghan will be ready to go. I am going to be showing you how to do it with a clip from a rug that I made. It is the same process. After you join your last stitch though, you will fasten off with an end long enough you can comfortably weave in. Pull up on the loop with your crochet hook so that that strand comes all the way out. Then insert your crochet hook into the stitch that you joined to from the wrong side to the right side. Yarn over with the strand and pull it through so it's on the back, because you'll want to weave your ends in from the wrong side, which is the back of the work. And then the video will go on from there. Alright, here's your chart. I have here my 4.25 millimeter crochet hook. The most important thing with the smaller hook is that you have a deep enough mouth to help you pull the yarn through. I'm not going to weave in horizontally, even though that's the easiest thing to do here. It just creates a lot of added bulkiness here that the bulkiness that's here on the side hides. And it limits the stretch widthwise, because the fabric has more stretch lengthwise, so it really doesn't hinder it that way, just by the nature of the way the rows are worked, whereas the way that the stitches are worked widthwise, it limits it. So I'm just going to work up and down into the side edge. I'm only working through the loops on this side that's currently facing me. This will be my wrong side. So when I insert my hook, I'm only going to pick up 1 loop. And you're only going to see that from the wrong side. On the right side, you do not see my crochet hook, because I'm not going all the way through the fabric. I'm going to use this crochet hook as if it was my tapestry needle. Tapestry needles don't really work in this fabric because it's just so much bulkiness, and it's just too hard to pull it through the fabric. It's so much easier with this crochet hook. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to just insert underneath several stitches. Starting down here, because I just want to get several stitches that I can pull my yarn through. So I'm just picking up the top loop that's on this layer that's facing me. And so you can see all those loops that I have on my crochet hook, but you cannot see it from the right side. This is the wrong side, and on the right side you cannot see it. So when I pull my yarn through, you will not see it on the right side. It's just getting trapped in between these stitches. And then you'll fix the fabric because it'll pull in on itself a little bit. And there's 1 pass. Now we turn the fabric. We go down to a stitch or 2 below where we're coming out from. And we pull it through on the other side. So this is going to loop around. And now our tail end is secure around this loop. And now we can return pass, and it won't pull any of that yarn out that we just put in there. And we do the same exact thing. We just insert our hook under several stitches, working just on this layer that's closest to us. We yarn over and we pull it through. And I hold it with my thumb, the actual loop from the very beginning, so it doesn't pull in too tight. And then I release it, and then I just tug on it a little bit. And now we have 2 passes. If you're comfortable with your yarn at this point, you think it caught really well, go ahead and fasten off. I always feel 3 passes is the best because it zigzags so much that it's not going to come out. So I'm going to work one more pass. And I'm doing it the same exact way. I'm just going to find a stitch that's nearby. And I will pull the yarn around it. So now that pass is secure. And I'm just going to go right back down through the same stitches I worked, picking up several stitches. Working just from this top layer. Here's the loop where it starts. I hold it with my thumb, yarn over, pull through all those loops. And then I can finish it off with my finger, and then I release with my thumb. Just tugging the fabric to make sure it's flat and even. And now I can fasten off this tail end. And it's not going to go anywhere. And that's how I weave in my ends, so I will just continue to do that. Guys, thanks so much for watching my video. You'll find the free crochet pattern for this linked in the description box below. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.